Hi, and welcome to another Take 5. I enjoy taking a walk during the day through the neighborhood and just looking at the different houses and the different families, and even wondering about those families and their lives and what's going on for them. And as I was walking today, I was just kind of reminded about this whole idea of neighbor. I remember Jesus, when asked what the greatest commandment was, he said it was to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And then a lawyer who wanted to know the legal implications of that command asked, well, who is my neighbor? And so Jesus just shared that simple story about a man that was headed to Jericho on a very dangerous road. And while he was on his trip, he was robbed and beaten and left for dead. It just so happened that a priest came by, saw him, and instead of helping him, he crossed the street and walked on the other side just so that he could avoid him and having to deal with the whole situation. Not too long after that, a Levite came by. Same thing. Rather than help the man in need, he walked on the other side of the street so he could avoid them altogether. And finally, it was a Samaritan, a class of person who was so looked down on by society. And what did he do? He did not cross the street and walk on the other side. Instead, he stopped and helped the man and took care of him, even at great expense to himself. And so as I walk through the neighborhood today, I think about neighbors. And I realized that Jesus had told that story because he wanted to demonstrate the fact that how we love our neighbors is a reflection of how we love God, how we love Jesus. That's why he tells in Matthew chapter 25 the story of the sheep and the goats. And he proposes this question. Those who are hungry, do we feed them? Those who are in thirst, do we give them something to drink? Those that are needing clothes, do we clothe them? Those who are visitors and strangers, do we welcome them in? Those who are sick and in prison, do we go and visit them? Because Jesus says, whatever you've done for the least of these brothers of mine, you've done for me. And so we cannot read that scripture and not realize that our love for our neighbor is a reflection of our love for God. Now, I know we're living in a time where we have to stay socially distanced and somewhat isolated. And so loving your neighbor may be a more difficult thing to do in a practical way. But I do believe there are ways that we can still love our neighbor and demonstrate our love for God. First of all, we can be praying for our neighbors, lifting them up in prayer. We can be checking in on our neighbors, finding out what needs they have. And then when God brings us to someone who is in need, rather than walk on the other side of the street and avoid it, we can embrace it and see it as a God opportunity to demonstrate our love for him and our love for other people. Maybe it's going and buying some essential groceries for a neighbor who has a difficult time getting out. Maybe it is just making a phone call of encouragement to help someone who may feel all alone. Whatever the need, I do believe that if God brings us to it, he will give us what we need to help meet that need. And so I pray that we'll be good neighbors, that we'll be people who demonstrate our love for God through our love for others. I love you, and we'll see you soon.